When our little girl came to us, she was almost 6 years old and had been in foster care for about half her life. I remember when I saw her photo for the very first time, she was gazing directly at the camera. Her eyes were beautiful with very curly lashes. I saw her effervescent smile, and the word sparkly came to mind. Her name was Zanea. The instant we saw that photo, my husband and I, Jim, just knew that's it, we're done. In our mind, Zanea was already ours. Shortly after that day, on Sunday, October 1st, 2006, Zanea arrived at our house dressed in a poofy pink party dress. And with that, our lives together began. We had a court-ordered closed adoption. Her birth mother had lost her parental rights. And Jim and I thought about all the upheavals Zanea had experienced in her very young life up until that point, being moved from foster home to supposedly adoptive home to another foster home, and how she managed to maintain her sparkle was truly amazing to me. And it never occurred to me, actually, to blame or feel judgmental towards her birth mom. I read in the social worker's report that during her and Zanea's last court-mandated meeting, she fussed over her daughter's hair and wept. And so I ached for her. Jim and I were committed to staying in touch with Zanea's birth mom, and I can't explain why, other than it just felt like the right thing to do. So we decided we would send school pictures and news of Zanea's interests and adventures. But Jim and I were protective too of Zanea's attachment to us. We thought contact with her birth mom would complicate matters and put an added strain on what felt like a fragile connection. So we didn't share our address, and we got a P.O. box in a adjoining town. In those early years together as a new family, Zanea was sometimes deeply hostile to me. Therapists told me that this was common for the child to devalue the adoptive mom in preference to the birth mom. And that made sense, especially considering that it had only been a few months before coming to us that Zanea had seen her birth mom for that final court-mandated and supervised meeting. So despite the difficulty of dealing with her antagonism and opposition, I ached for Zanea as well. When we sent off our letters and photos, her birth mom wrote back notes full of grateful appreciation, and we corresponded through snail mail until Zanea was around 13 years old. When she was 13, she tracked down her birth mom through the internet, spoke with her, and naturally wanted to see her. At that point, Jim and I felt that even though it was not the timing we would have preferred, because Zanea was not fully bonded with me, we didn't want to set up a situation where Zanea would try to organize a meeting secretly, hide the relationship, and become even more bonded to her birth mom. So yeah, we were living the fear of a lot of adoptive parents, but it seemed to us that we wanted to join with Zanea's birth mom rather than be in opposition to her or in opposition to Zanea's connection with her. Prior to this time, Zanea had wanted to know more about the circumstances of her removal from her birth mom. And in bits and pieces and very carefully, we shared some of the information that we had. We set up visits with the social worker and former foster families. We let her read small parts of the social worker's reports. We shared newspaper clippings. We traveled to the hospital where she had been born. and we met some of the people who knew her before she was placed into foster care. Jim and I decided we would meet with the birth mom first, without Zanea, to see for ourselves if we thought it would be safe for Zanea to be around this person. Would the meeting be too triggering or traumatic? We had a lot of concerns. But it turns out our concerns were totally unfounded. We had a lovely visit with Takia. And then we had another one when we brought Zanea. That was also quite lovely. And then we had many visits after that. But through her teenage years, Zanea had an increasingly hard time with attachment to me, specifically. And I imagine that part of the problem was that she thought she needed to be loyal to her birth mom, that she thought she had to choose her real mom, which of course wouldn't and couldn't be me. And it shattered me, frankly. But I resigned myself to the fact that this would be my reality, that I would be the mother of a child who didn't respect me and didn't accept me as her mom. But I also decided that I would love her no matter what. And then I heard 4 simple words that changed my life. Those words came from a Mr. Patrick J. O'Brien, which probably isn't surprising to most of you here tonight. Now, on the face of it, what Pat said might not sound like a big deal, but it was a big deal to me. What he said was this: she has 2 moms. It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said it, so matter-of-factly. And it stopped me in my tracks. It was as if my heart that had always been open to loving my daughter was now opening more to understand something deeply and beautifully profound. Zanea has 2 moms. Shortly afterwards, literally like a day or 2, I had the opportunity to tell Zanea those exact words: you have 2 moms. And I could see how those words shifted her reality. And in real time, I heard her say those same words to a friend. I could feel her relief at having the language to understand and talk about an aspect of her life. Plus, it meant that she didn't have to choose who was the real mom. She has 2, and we're both real. Over the years, not only did we get to know Takia, but also Zanea's brother, a sister, and some other family members. And one Christmas, we met Zanea's grandmother, the mother of Takia, Francine. Francine and I immediately liked each other. We were fast friends. She was a few years younger than I and instantly embraced me as a family member. She was a proud and unapologetic member of NA, Narcotics Anonymous. And I even went with her to some NA functions. They had some conventions and things. The more remarkable thing about Francine to me was that at these functions, she would grab my hand and go around introducing me as her granddaughter's mom, explaining the whole story about Zanea being with her daughter and her daughter losing custody and Zanea being adopted. She would do this whole Cliff Notes version of the story in about a minute. And I was with her on more than one occasion where she would tell it over and over again. She told the story of her daughter losing custody of Zanea with absolutely no embarrassment or shame. Because she knew that reality is what happens, and our job is to learn, grow, change, and ultimately accept. She was the embodiment of the Serenity Prayer. Sadly, on March 10th of this year, when Zanea was 21, Francine passed away from breast cancer. Zanea and I visited almost every day during the last 2 weeks of her life, and we were there just hours before she passed. And on our visits, we encountered many of Francine's friends who warmly greeted me and seemed to know exactly who I was. For the funeral, friends and family were told to wear purple and white, Francine's favorite colors. I was invited to wear those colors, and I spent hours shopping for colors in shades I never wear. And, but I came to the service dressed appropriately, but I was also prepared to sit in the back if the family wanted me to sit there. Instead, I was directed to sit in the second row, and Zanea chose to sit next to me, directly behind her birth mom and Francine's mom, so Zanea's great-grandmother. During the service, they had a slideshow of photographs of Francine with various friends and family members. And always one for a good party or a photo op. There was Francine with a coconut bra and grass skirt, with Zanea and Takia also in coconut bras and grass skirts. There was Francine dropping it like it's hot. There was Francine in an ugly Christmas sweater and a hairband studded with Christmas lights. And then there was a photo of Francine with people maybe from NA, and lo and behold, I was standing there too, grinning for the camera. And at that moment, Takia turned to me with a smile, and she pointed meaningfully at the screen as if to say, see, you're a part of this family. And I'll never forget it. I will always be grateful to Francine, one of my daughter's grandmothers. And I will always be grateful to Takia, my daughter's other mother. Without being ordered and without intending it, we created an open adoption. And that's because we have something that could never be mandated, that could never be court ordered. We had hearts that were open to each other. My heart was open to Takia, and Takia's heart was open to me. And Zanea, my smart, vivacious, courageous, headstrong, difficult, hardworking, inspiring, and loving daughter, has a heart that was now open to both of us, her two moms. Thank you.